Hello, we are live in Kilgore, Texas. This is Dr. Jill Powers. Once again, this time I have picked to read for you the allegorical significance of J.K. Rowling's fantastic mythological menagerie in Harry Potter. And to tell you something about this paper is one of the first offerings that I gave conference-wise after graduating with my PhD. Tennessee Philological Association is a small local conference, local to Tennessee anyway. But I belong to their conference circuit. I also I started off my conference circuits in 1996 with cyborg theory way down in Waco, Texas. Had been to several conferences as a graduate student, particularly the Society for Literature, Science, and the Arts. I'm no longer a member of that organization because they have gotten way too woke for my like. And when I say for my likes, I was always a very liberal person for a really long time. I was Democrat for 30 years, voted for Democrats straight ticket almost always. The only time I didn't vote in a national election was 1988, and I didn't want to vote for Dukakis because he was socialist. So I have no excuse. Went on to campaign for Bill Clinton, who I actually met and saw later when I was at Fisk. Explain a few things about situation at Fisk. I was there from 2003 until 2014 when I quit and moved back to Texas with my husband. He got a job offer in Irving, which is a suburb of Dallas, and we moved back here. I gave up tenure. It was the worst thing I ever did. So, I wish I was still in Nashville, but alas, that was not to be permanent situation for me, and now here I am living in deep red East Texas, which I don't mind at all. This is a nice little town. It's a nice place to retire in, actually. I don't have any qualms about that. No jobs here, but whatever. Right. Got a little bit of a sniffle this morning. Nothing significant though. Thank goodness, because we're going into summer here and it's going to be really hot. Anyway, how did I come to write about Harry Potter? Of course, I'd read all the relevant novels, not the Dumbledore series afterwards, none of those, but the actual full 6-book canon. But anyway, back in 2006, I had, I've been applying. I did 2 conferences a year. One for Tennessee Philological Association, and the other I would do for Literature, Science, and the Arts, or I would do SCMLA, which is South Central Modern Language Association, and I never did go to any of the national MLA or international conferences there, but I did attend the international ones for the Society for Literature, Science, and the Arts. So, associated with this, how did I come about writing this paper? I didn't really explain how I came about Candyman. I was looking for film offerings for Candyman to write about, and that would be good to show. My class is at Fisk, which is a historically black university. It is private. Tuition there is about, well, when I left, it was about $850 per semester hours. So it's a pretty exclusive school. Most of the students there, they're either legacies and their parents are wealthy, or they come in on lots and lots of scholarships, and that's how that works there. But it's like 99.9% black, just to let you know. How did I come about writing for Harry Potter? Well, the Tennessee Philological Association that year was having their conference, their annual conference, at Freed-Hardeman University, which is in Henderson, Tennessee. It's a little town not too far away from Memphis, and was not a big issue for me to drive to. So I thought, well, this will be a good starter for me for getting back into the conferencing, as I need to do for my professional development, which you always have to do. You have to at least make some effort to publish whenever you're a tenure track professor, as I was at that point. I hadn't yet gotten tenure at that point. So the more that I could do this way, getting out and doing conference papers. But anyway, I decided to do this with Tennessee Philological Association at Freed-Hardeman. So I sent in, I thought, well, what is the theme of the conference? Generally, you can write your papers around the themes of the conference, or you can submit works that you've already completed, which I've done that. I've done both of them, numerous times. This was one I wrote specifically for this conference, and started off, oddly enough, I was looking for sources because the theme was mythological creatures. And I thought, well, I could write about Dante, or one of the other sagas, or anything that can contain mythical beasts. And I thought, what better thing to write about would be something contemporary, something that grab people's attention, and that they could be interested in, and it wouldn't be quite so lofty a subject as like tackling Hamlet or Jane Austen or Coleridge, someone like that, which I did. I did do some of those projects, and as I did with Candyman with the Shakespeare, but that was the year afterward when I did that particular paper. Anyway, this I was looking for sources on mythological creatures, and I watched, I had read all the books, and I knew there were some parts, there were reasons why the directors weren't using parts of it, like in Goblet of Fire, the whole situation with the elf slavery and all of that they left all of that out. But what is Harry Potter about, and why was it so popular? Well, it's full of mythological creatures, and you could pretty much start from the beginning with the unicorn, Cerberus, any number of mythological creatures you could focus on, but there were several in there, and they are pretty significant to it. So we want to look at the characters, what they represent, what is their significance, why are they important, and what they do is what is more important. And I think this is one of the things that drives Harry Potter. It's not the characters so much. Yeah, they've got their personalities, their little personalities, that Harry and Hermione and Ron and Malfoy, the Malfoys, Dumbledore, Snape. Severus Snape is by far one of the most interesting characters, played by one of the best actors too, Alan Rickman. My goodness, what an actor, right? But had a little bit of a crush on him. Anyway, how did I come about this? So, began looking in the books, in the movies, for these particular images. And while I was thinking on that, should I focus on the unicorn because it is a chosen one type of story, and the unicorn is the unique divine creature that is supposed to be representative of Christ in Christendom. So whenever I could have focused on that, but instead I went the way of the dragon. And this is going to be significant for a number of reasons. For Slytherin, for the houses, for Gryffindor, the lion, another representative of Christ, another mythological creature, the Gryffindor. with Gryffindor. But I decided to go with the basilisk because that is a creature that Harry has to kill. Why does he have to kill the basilisk? Well, it's trying to kill him, and Voldemort has taken Ginny hostage and all of that at the point in Chamber of Secrets, and done all this without the help of the teacher. There turns out to be, this narcissistic, egotistical guy. He's completely incompetent, of course, and he's written all these books and everything, and all the girls love him and all that, but he's fake, and that comes to light. But it's not as important as the basilisk itself. It had been living in the corridors. It had been like Medusa, causes people to transform into stone if they see it. And so, even the seeing it in the reflection in this case will still turn you into stone. And the basilisk itself, we will get to that, but I was focusing on that, and I was wondering about all these other mythological creatures. And I was on vacation. I had stopped at a half-price bookstore to see if I could find some books on mythological creatures, because I didn't have any specifically that weren't just mythology, pure mythology textbooks and that kind of thing I had lying around, but I needed something more specific. And so the book that I found was this book, St. George, Hero, Martyr, and Myth by Samantha Riches. And as you can see, I've still got all these bookmarked from the time, and all my pages of notes that I took on these creatures, some other things. So in this particular book, there are some references that I had to look up, and one of them, two specific works that I'm going to be talking about are the Legend of St. George. Here, it comes from Spenser's Fairy Queen, and then earlier than that, in Italian literature, Ariosto's Orlando Furioso. And this is the copy that I have of Orlando Furioso. If you can't tell, this says the literature of Italy. This edition that I have is a 1907 first edition. And let's see that picture? See how that lifted up? That's how pictures were done in books. They were pasted in. This also has the original uncut pages in it, and some of the illustrations are engraved in ink and protected by onion paper. So I'm not going to open that up to read from that. I just wanted everybody to see what a little prize that I had finding this. Other than the watermark that the original owner put in, this was obviously a series of stories, of anthologies, compiled like, as a catalog of works in Italian. This was a translation, and what can I say? It's actually very valuable. This is the kind of book that should be probably in a museum. So I have a few little valuable tidbits like that hanging around, but not very many of them as valuable as that. So I take good care of it. I've had it for years now. But anyway, it's when I started looking into that, because it will be relevant to what I'm talking about with the allegorical significance. And we're talking about one-to-one representation of symbols. It's I think you could say, because it's a more modern work, you get more reification type of allegory than typological, but there's a mix of both, so you have to bear that in mind. So you look at something like Tolkien, for example. Tolkien hated allegory. So, if any of you are tempted to allegorize Lord of the Rings or any of his works, don't. He says they're symbolical, but they are not allegorical, so bear that in mind. But J.K. Rowling, what a lot of people that focus on right now is her ideas about gender and sexuality and the binary factuality of human biology. Why are y'all focused on that crap? Get over yourselves. You call us TERFs and cisgender bullshit. Men and women. We're men and women. If you're a man, you have XY chromosomes. If you're a woman, you have XX chromosomes. We're fundamentally built differently, but that's important for definition. We're going to find this important for definition for any creature that we talk about, because these are mythological creatures. They're sometimes they have some basis in reality, but generally they're legendary. They're not necessarily something that you see every day. That's what makes them mythological, right? Just like the narwhal with the as being a unicorn of the sea. These things have some basis, and we see that with sirens and mermaids. We're going to talk about mermaids a little bit, because they come into play here, and how they do has to do with the storyline. It's not just one thing. It is very complex. J.K. Rowling graduated from Exeter College, and she had background in the classics, in classical literature and in Old French literature. So, if she has background in Old French, that's one of the things we're going to talk about. J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter books have spawned a new canon that has become increasingly interesting to serious academics. A great deal of this success can be traced to Rowling's technique of using mythological creatures as allegorical figures in her texts, which fans can easily identify. Rowling combines Christian and pagan alchemical symbols in ways reminiscent of Dante's fourfold allegorical method, making her series explicitly Christian allegory, despite claims of certain Christians to the contrary on account of Rowling's use of cult symbolism. All of these symbols instill a metaphysical plane of meaning into Rowling's physical universe in Harry Potter, particularly if we follow the reasoning of John Granger. Should turn on their light. John Granger, who believes that Rowling's use of alchemical symbolism works, quote, because they both endeavor, ellipsis, to transform the human person. Within Rowling's alchemical symbolism is embedded the Christian mythical allegory of St. George and the Dragon, which works because the history of early Christianity is wrapped in the history of the occult and alchemy. Harry, as Godric Gryffindor's house protagonist, allied to the Order of the Phoenix, headed by Professor Dumbledore, is always beset by problems in relation to the House of Slytherin, the house generated by Salazar Slytherin, ancestor of Tom Riddle, aka Lord Voldemort, signified by a snake. These characters function literally, but they are also symbols representing good and evil. No moral relativism here. They are good or evil. Okay? Particularly Harry's journey toward transformation into the representative savior of the good. These figures are morally juxtaposed as ethical poles, and their symbolisms function to predict the outcome of their confrontations. The images of creatures, mythological and real, and some of which are living, such as Dumbledore's phoenix, Fox. That's F-A-W-K-E-S, by the way, not F-O-X. Fox, as in Guy Fawkes. Okay. Guy Fawkes, the revolution that happened in Britain. Okay. Some of which are merely symbolical, such as the lion in Gryffindor house coat of arms, are associated with characters of Harry and Voldemort in ways that demonstrate their relations of alliance or opposition, thereby moderating the direction of the series. On the literal level, Harry Potter was born to James and Lily Potter, two wizards who fought against a dark wizard, Lord Voldemort, an anagram for Tom Marvolo Riddle. Great name, huh? He sounds like a magician, doesn't he? Okay, yeah. Ultimate evil wizard. Harry was the only survivor of an attack by Voldemort that killed both of his parents and set him up as the chosen one, the boy who lived, in the setting of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, run by the mysterious headmaster Dumbledore, who Harry calls the greatest wizard alive. Dumbledore is the head of a secret society, the Order of the Phoenix, which is the dialectic opposite to Tom Riddle and his Slytherin followers, who are known as Death Eaters. Tom Riddle had been a brilliant student at Hogwarts 50 years prior to Harry's matriculation there, and Riddle had also been a protege of Dumbledore's, just as Harry is. However, Potter and Riddle use their talents in completely opposite ways. Ironically, Dumbledore discovers that Riddle actually chose his rival when he attempted to kill Harry. Thus, he is truly the chosen one. The chosen one is always reluctant. Always reluctant. You're not looking at someone who is fake courageous. Harry certainly is not courageous to begin with. But he gains a reputation for being fairly fearlessly jumping into any situation that you have there. And why would he do that? He was a student, right? That should be the teachers doing that. But as we see, this is the hero's journey. This is his process of growing up. He is a chosen one, but he is also it is the coming of age for Harry to become a great wizard. He has to go through all of this, including the sacrifice. So, inadvertently transferring some of his powers to him when he chose to try to kill his prophesied rival. Harry uses his powers to help his friends, particularly loyal to Dumbledore. Riddle uses his powers against all who he believes oppose him or stand in his way, which is why he killed his own father as well as Potter's, and Riddle perversely opposes even Dumbledore, who adopted Riddle. The first symbols that are set in opposition to each other are the house crest, Lion of Gryffindor versus the Snake of Slytherin. The lion traditionally represents Christ, and the snake traditionally represents Satan and the side of evil. That much is easily evident. Both Tom Riddle and Harry Potter are dialectic opposites, and yet they share many characteristics. Both are orphans, although Tom actually killed his own father after his mother died in childbirth, forlorn by his muggle father, Tom, while Harry was left an orphan when Tom killed the Potters. The attack resulting in a lightning-like scar on Harry's forehead. Both have brother wands containing tail feathers of the same phoenix, fox. Most of the Slytherins are at least half Muggle. Riddle and Snape are both half-blood, and Snape, as former Death Eater, kills Dumbledore in Book 6, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, so that bloodlines figure heavily within the fates of both Harry Potter and Tom Riddle. Salazar Slytherin's preference for the purity of wizard blood embroils Hogwarts in controversy from its early start, while Godric Gryffindor, Helga Hufflepuff, and Rowena Ravenclaw knew that trying to maintain purity was not practical or morally just. Thus, the majority of the houses lean toward not only admitting students who were only half-blood, or part Muggle, non-magic folk, and part wizard or witch, but also students who had magical talent whose parents were both Muggles. Tom Riddle Voldemort takes a philosophy of hating Muggles, much like his ancestor Salazar Slytherin, and refers to himself as the heir, referring to the relation to Slytherin, mainly because his Muggle father abandoned his wizard mother. Thus, Voldemort attacks all mudbloods, the Muggle-born or half-Muggles, because like his ancestor Salazar Slytherin, Voldemort hates the Muggle bloodlines, mainly because his own father was a Muggle who abandoned his pregnant witch mother. The snake is symbolism of the House of Slytherin, works to set up the moral controversy of racism, especially in the hidden symbolisms of the Gryffindor lion versus the Slytherin snake. Because Harry is constantly battling the Slytherins and Riddle's Death Eaters, these snake images are related to Harry's character as an archetype coming from the myth of St. George's killing of a dragon. Harry talks to snakes in books 1 and 2 and kills the basilisk in book 2. Significant events for the symbolism of St. George. It's one of the things that I had noticed when I was picking out the textbook on St. George was the woodcut image of St. George killing the dragon, and that brought up an interest in me because, well, that's exactly the image that we get at the end of Chamber of Secrets, the book 2. That he kills the basilisk, he stabs it up through the throat. So you get the same image in the movie that you do in traditional legend. St. George is the patron saint of England and the Order of the Garter, just as most of the houses of royalty in Europe also claim George as their patron saint. So I've got a footnote on that. Probably need to go look at that. Sorry about the delay. More and more soldiers of the early Middle Ages wore this standard as a symbol of their allegiance to the Order of the Garter under Edward III in 1348, as George was always credited with helping armies toward victory in early Norman conflicts, especially those of the Plantagenets and Edward the Confessor. Pope Benedict XIV declared St. George as England's protector, and thus he became England's patron saint. Several flags of European nations, including the Swiss flag, the Danish flag, and the British Jack, are all connected in some way with this standard. The theme of regeneration of St. George comes about in a connected legend in which George supposedly was put to death 7 times, each time miraculously recovering. 7 times. That is always a significant number. A, quote, Christianization of the old Semitic myth of the god Tammuz, so that we can see that the George of the Christian mythologies was also a myth of Islam belief, aka Genghis or El Khudi, which is probably where originates the myth of the princess on the verge of being consumed by a dragon, which is, of course, the very scenario that we see with Jenny being abducted, and they're threatening her life. This myth becomes even more compelling as a possible source for the hippogriff of Book 3, considering that in Muhammad's night journey, Muhammad rides a creature that is remarkably like a hippogriff as well. And that's going to be very, very significant to my argument here. It concerns as much the basilisk, it concerns the hippogriff that we're going to see in Book 3, The Prisoner of Azkaban. Okay. Harry can be seen as a St. George figure because he is helping not only Hogwarts, but the England of the Muggles, because he is defending not only good wizards, but all Muggles who Riddle and his Death Eaters want to exterminate. The St. George legend is linked in some ways to the Genesis myth of Adam and Eve, but also takes its cue from several older pagan mythologies prevalent not only in Indo-European cultures, but also in Turkey, Russia, and Africa. So, now I have another footnote. St. George was a Christian martyr who was supposedly born in Lydda in 270 AD, now occupied Palestine. Palestine. Yeah. You mean Judah, okay. While some historians say that he was born in Cappadocia, so there is some controversy and confusion about his real origins, especially since so many cultures have claimed him as native. A little muse on St. George, according to a little muse. George supposedly became a Roman soldier and later became a Christian martyr when he tore down an imperial decree which ordered people to make offerings to the Emperor Diocletian as a god. Therefore, when brought before the emperor, he refused to be swayed by either threats or bribes. The Emperor Diocletian had him tortured and killed. This myth isn't just English. He is patron of places ranging from Catalonia to the Danish town of Holstebro, where the Black Sea state of Georgia is actually named in his honor. Wow, the Black Sea state. Significantly, St. George is also the patron saint of, of Boy Scouts. Harry is the perfect emblem of the creed of the Boy Scouts. Well, maybe not our Boy Scouts now, which are, totally compromised, but anyway, on to something completely different. George's supposed encounter with the dragon appears to be the result, the conglomeration of this mythology with another one whose origin may come from the Turkish legend. I'm sorry about that. And from any number of the Indo-European legends. While St. George is on a pilgrimage to Jerusalem, he encounters a dragon which is about to devour a princess slated to be sacrificed to appease the beast's wrath. George slays the dragon with his pike and rescues and marries the princess. In Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, Harry Potter encounters and slays a basilisk, a giant snake creature, but he also defeats a dragon for his first task of the Tri-Wizards tournament in Book 4. So, all the dragon imagery that you see in there, that's significant. And we see that they're pretty badass creatures. But that's in Goblet of Fire.
A little bit, I'm going to take these trash bags out with him. Both those trash cans plus the one back there.
I'm filming.
Oh.
Thank you. Okay. It's all right. In the Middle Ages, St. George became a popular figurehead for knights returning from the Crusades, riding a white horse, defending the poor and weak, symbolizing the ideal Christian soldier, and thus became the hallmark archetype for the knight in shining armor. When Harry kills the basilisk in the second book, he does so with the help of Dumbledore, who sends his phoenix fox with the sorting hat, which contains Godric Gryffindor's sword, which he uses to slay the beast. However, he doesn't do it by simply decapitating the beast, but by stabbing the basilisk through the roof of his mouth, through his throat. A motif that appears repeatedly in the scads and woodcuts and paintings of St. George from the early Middle Ages to the present. Furthermore, Harry may well be the direct allusion to Edmund Spenser's Red Cross Knight of the Fairy Queen, who Spenser describes as, quote, an inexperienced soldier who nevertheless bears the scars of previous encounters on his armor and shield. The first verse of Canto 1 of the Fairy Queen. Clad in mighty arms and silver shield, wherein old dents of deep wounds did remain, the cruel remarks of many a bloody field, yet arms till that time he did never wield. Yes, the lightning scar. He had battle scars without ever having been in a battle. Someone trying to kill you, that you might consider that as a battle scar. Okay. Oddly enough, this knight with no experience had battle scars as evidence of past battles, despite having no previous battle experience. The same can be said of Harry Potter, whose lightning bolt scar is evidence of Voldemort's attack on him at the age of 1. Spenser drew his inspirations from Ariosto's Orlando Furioso, which outlines a conflict between the Christians and the Saracens during the Crusade. In this poem, A pagan knight named Roger rescues a princess chained up as a sacrifice to an orc, and Roger rides the same type of creature, a hippogriff, that Harry Potter does in the third book, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Simply too many similarities exist here to ignore, especially considering that Rowling took firsts in both classics and French from Exeter College. She rarely specifically names her inspirations, but according to her website, she has admitted that many of her characters have been influenced by past readings. And she certainly would have been familiar with the legends of Roland and Roger from Spencer's work, as well as the work from Orlando Furioso. She has also admitted she has made her tale specifically English, so the bow to St. George is all the more probable for that. That isn't the end of the connections to St. George either. The phoenix's symbol is crucial to connecting the St. George image to that of Dumbledore. King James I was the target of the traitor Guy Fawkes, the namesake for Dumbledore's prized phoenix, of which both Harry and Voldemort in both of their wands have tail feathers from Fawkes, from this particular phoenix. He was not only the original commissioner of the world's most popular form of the Bible, but also a Stuart, Mary, Queen of Scots' son. The Stuarts and the Windsors claimed descendancy from Christ himself. Oh yes, the Windsors. You mean like Queen Elizabeth II and Charles III? Yes, they claim descendancy from Christ, and they do from every royal house in Europe. Okay. So you have them, they're all kissing cousins, so to speak. But James I as being a target of the traitor Guy Fawkes, and of course we know that it isn't too much longer until Charles is the first is deposed, and then Charles II is beheaded in the revolution that followed. And by the way, just a little side note, it's pretty well known that Shakespeare was a commissioned writer of the King James Version of the Bible. So if you read it for no other reason than that, it is interesting from a linguistic standpoint, if nothing else. Okay, you don't have to believe it to be able to read it and understand it. Okay, all right. Stuarts and Windsors claimed descendancy from Christ himself, connected supposedly through the Merovingian kingdoms. Merovingians, wow, really? Which the houses of Windsor and Lily are descended and the root lineage of all the royal houses of Europe. And notice that it is through the lineage of Lily, okay, just like Christ came from the lineage of his father, but particularly through his mother. He could only be Christ because of that bloodline being the prominent one. He did not come down, and that was one of the prophecies of the Old Testament, that he would somehow elude this curse of that particular bloodline that was on the father's side. That's how he avoided it. So whenever you look at Christian mythology, you want to look at all of that. You want to look at the minor prophets too. Okay. All the royal houses of Europe, furthermore, the primary symbol associated with this line is the serpent, and the standard of the fleur-de-lis represents the house of the lily. Harry Potter's mother, Lily, thus symbolizes how the royal bloodline of Europe passed down through the female of this branch of wizard royalty. Quote, as a symbol of the Merovingian bloodline, the fleur-de-lis specifically represents the French branch of this genealogical tree. Holy Blood, Holy Grail, the basis of the Oh my goodness, just had a brain fart. Um, um, the Brown novel, Da Vinci Code. Yeah, the Da Vinci Code. Actually, Brown was actually accused of plagiarism of Holy Blood and Holy Grail in making that story. And there are kind of some stupid things, but it's he sets it in Paris, and it's actually in Rennes-le-Chateau, that the Grail legend supposedly, and that was a documentary as well. So having to do with Mary Magdalene and her church in Rennes-le-Chateau, France. Holy Blood, Holy Grail contains an illustration which explains the connection of the fleur-de-lis with French Merovingian royalty. Legend of the fleur-de-lis, a 15th century illumination of the legend of the divine origins of the fleur-de-lis, symbol of the French royal line. Clovis I is shown receiving a banner from his queen, Clotilda. So if Lily stands for the fleur-de-lis, she is Muggle-born, and James for James I, then Harry's descendancy is from Christ, the chosen one. Harry is a Christ figure, the Son of Man. Even one of Harry's competitors in the Triwizard Tournament is Fleur de la Cour, another fleur-de-lis reference. Evidence from the text that it supports this symbolism would be from the same book in which the fleur reference occurs, the Goblet of Fire. The second task of the Triwizard Tournament is the riddle of the merman. Remember the lake, and he has to get gillyweed to be able to survive in rescuing Ron, and he ends up rescuing Fleur Delacour's little sister as well. So he's a big hero for that. But the merman must be deciphered from the first clue won from task 1, the defeat of the dragon. So he has to defeat the dragon before he can crack the code of the merman in the bath when it opens up for him underwater. The mother dragon's golden egg contains a message from the merman, only decipherable underwater, where Harry must rescue the one person most important to him, Ron Weasley. When Fleur de la Cour is delayed in her task, Harry takes on her task as well as his own, saving both Ron and Fleur's little sister. Book 4 shows Dumbledore speaking flawless merman as well. So Dumbledore can speak to the mermen in their own language. Significance of this book demonstrates the symbolism of the Merovingian secret, that the supernatural abilities of the Merovingian line are mythical in origin. Quote, that the Merovingian bloodline came from elsewhere is clear because of the legends that surrounds their founder, King Merovee, who is said to have been the spawn of a quinatar, a giant fish or a sea monster who raped his mother when she went out to swim in the ocean. Sounds rather Europa-like, doesn't it? Europa. See, then cross references, and very clever, Joe, really very clever. Now it becomes clear why it's called Merovee, because in French mer means sea. Last task of book 4 is the labyrinth in which the Triwizard's Cup is hidden, and the cup itself was transformed into a teleport which takes both Harry and the hapless Hogwarts champion Cedric Diggory to Voldemort's Bulgarian hideout, where Voldemort and the Death Eaters kill Diggory and come close to killing Harry. Thus, as St. George figure, Harry is implicitly fighting not only for the preservation of Great Britain and Europe, but for Christ and all Christendom. he does this against Voldemort as a dialectic between good and evil, and we see that he is given the choice of being evil. If he wanted to be, he could have been, but he chooses to be good, and that's what that in order to defeat him, he must make the big sacrifice. And that's what his coming of age means, is that he will actually be sacrificed, but he will be rejuvenated, restored. As a means of doing this, means of a little plot device, right? Thus, as St. George figured, Harry is implicitly fighting not only for the preservation of Great Britain and Europe, but for Christ and all Christendom. Linking these images to the unicorn and phoenix means that both Harry and Voldemort will be reborn over and over again, because good and evil must maintain balance. It's kind of a Manichaean view of good and evil, but it's not as nearly morally ambiguous or relativistic, as we would call it, as we see in things like Star Wars. Don't even get me started on Star Wars, how bad it's gotten. I don't want to watch it. It's so bad. It's, you can't tell who's good, bad, who's the protagonist. There's no protagonist anymore. There's no antagonist anymore. They try to paint them as anti-heroes, but they're not. There's nothing heroic about them. At least with Hannibal Lecter, you got a sense that he was really a brilliant guy who was very, very twisted, and very Byronic in that sense. But these characters, they're not interesting. They're not Hannibal Lecter at all. Voldemort is much more interesting, since you can kind of understand his bitterness as an orphan, but he is really just, thoroughly rotten. He enjoys torturing people and being generally nasty, and is very much he has to have a lot of people following him, and he ropes them in that way. So he is very Satan-like. They must maintain balance. And this is what the chessboard charm in Philosopher's Stone refers to, is an alchemical symbol. But it also refers again to the chessboard and its connections to the Merovingian bloodline. Yes, the whole, king, queen, bishop, or I'm sorry, not bishop. Is that right? I don't play chess that often, but the knight and the bishop and the rook and all the pawns, that is the feudal contract, and the black and the white tiles represent the balance of good and evil, and that was Manichaean. Like I said, was considered heretical by the early Catholic Church, and Manichaeans were actually put to death for that heresy, that good was not cannot always overcome evil. William Blake goes over that a lot with his dialectic of good and evil. But anyway, Rowling is Scottish. Something to remember whenever you're looking at an author. She has interest in the Scottish connections to this, and that is James the First of England. This is not so unusual. She would choose this juxtaposition between the controversial Merovingian claim to power as the basis of her structure. Less obvious to the establishment of the opposition of the characters of Harry and Riddle is the allegorical symbolism of the phoenix in relation to that of the serpent. Just as the purity of the unicorn is posed against the corruption of the serpent of Voldemort in the second book, Dumbledore's phoenix fox comes to Harry's aid and blinds the basilisk the 70-foot mythical serpent that kills people by looking at them. Dumbledore's phoenix cries tears that heal Harry's injury from the tooth of the basilisk, according to Manly P. Hall, the occult author of renown. The phoenix is an alchemical symbol for the principle of regeneration, just like the serpent is. Regarded as sacred to the sun, and the length of its life, 500 to 1,000 years, was taken as standard for measuring the motion of the heavenly bodies, and also the cycles of time used in the mysteries to designate the periods of existence. Like the serpent, another symbol for immortality and regeneration, reborn out of its self-immolation, 7 times 7, representing the spiritual rebirth of all men. Christ's raising from the dead Lazarus can be seen in Harry's own survival by Voldemort's attacks. Because the phoenix represents regeneration, we can connect this mythical beast's position in relation to the serpent as a fighter between good and evil that is necessary to the continuation of the school itself. Last two images important to Harry's significance as savior is his induction into Gryffindor instead of Slytherin. The Gryffindor standard is that of a red lion on a golden standard, another symbol of Christ. In the first book, when Harry must defend the sorcerers, reads Philosopher's Stone against Voldemort. In the possessed Janus-like Professor Quirrell, he must make the choice whether to allow Voldemort to come into possession of the stone, which would regenerate Voldemort into a living form, or to defend Dumbledore's possession of the stone and revenge his parents' death. Voldemort tempts him, saying that he can bring Harry's parents back from the dead. And the mirror that he encounters that enables him to imagine that his parents were still alive. And you could just waste away in front of that mirror. So, I have a mirror stage thing, a recognition of the object of desire. I've talked about this with Lacanian theory and the psychology of the character, that he would love nothing more to do than just sit in front of that mirror and just he would just waste away in front of it because he's never going to get what he wants. So the temptation of the serpent tongued, so he speaks snake. He is able to speak with snakes, as you find out in book 1, and later he is able to command the basilisk. Another savior image is reckoned in the figure of the slain unicorns of the forest, which have been victimized by Quirrell Voldemort in an attempt to bring Voldemort back to life. In vain, because the unicorn's blood carries the curse of a living death and its immortality. The unicorn is yet another symbol for Christ, just as the hippogriff of the third book is connected in part to the image of the griffin. The snake allegory of Genesis, as connected to the symbol of the House of Slytherin, is set against the Order of the Phoenix. The allegory surrounding the symbolism of the snake is obvious from the story of Adam and Eve and the temptation of the serpent in the book of Genesis, where the heirs of Adam are set against the heirs of the snake, where the snake bruises the heel of the seed of Adam, but the seed of Adam will bruise the snake's head. This idea is embedded in the allegory of the novel, with Voldemort's murder of Harry's parents. The original Potters, the lightning bolt is a sign of his chosen status. And lightning bolt in Christian mythology also represents the Satan, a reference to Satan falling as lightning falls. Okay, so that is in the New Testament. He only discovers this is Voldemort's legacy to him from the attack when he speaks to the snake set on him by Draco Malfoy. Lucius's son and Harry's immediate enemy in his own class. The Death Eater's tattoos mark their allegiance to Voldemort. A skull with a snake coming out of its mouth that symbolizes the Slytherins. According to Manly Hall's The Secret Teachings of All Ages, the snake is also a positive symbol for knowledge and wisdom, as it comes from the Genesis story. Also a source of temptation by the serpent in detecting the forbidden fruit from the tree of knowledge. The result is a death sentence for all mankind, so that Harry can be considered as the fruit of the sexual consummation. The snake of spinal fire, signifying the penis, the masculine progenitor, the phallus as the source of generative fire. The serpent is also representative of the principle and prototype of the universal Savior, because the brazen serpent was the symbol predicting that a Savior would be crucified. That was the one created by Moses, where if you were bitten by a snake, you could be, if you looked at this brass serpent, it would magically cure you, and that is the symbol of the sacrifice of the crucifixion. James Potter thus generated the Chosen One. As chief alchemist of Hogwarts, Albus Dumbledore is very important, for he defeated a dark wizard by the name of Grindelwald and discovered the 12 uses of dragon's blood. Other critics have pointed out the name Albus refers directly to King Arthur's Britain, Albion. And we see this also in the game Fable, the Fable 1, 2, and 3. That all of that is part of Albion, of Albus Dumbledore, this representative of Britain itself. While the Grindelwald reference is likely from Grendel in Beowulf and linked to Beowulf's own defeat of a dragon at the cost of his own life at the end of that saga. So Beowulf was also a possible source of this myth. St. Patrick's driving the snakes out of Ireland, the pagan pygmy myth, legend of a hero who kills a dragon to help a maiden, legends of King Arthur and Merlin. Beowulf's fatal encounter with the dragon at the end of his life can all be seen as connected. There are connected mythologies in the figure of St. George. Dumbledore is classified as wizard first class of the Order of Merlin, so he is a Merlin figure, or a wizard whose magic is part of the dragon power that enabled Arthur's reign, according to Arthurian legend. Symbolism of snakes and dragons is taken further. The python in the zoo at Book 1, spell snake of the duel, and the basilisk, Book 2, the dragons that he fights in Triwizards Tournament. All of these are dragon figures and snake figures. According to Manly P. Hall, a snake wraps around the Orphic egg, which symbolizes the creative soul of the philosopher, which emerges from the material egg, with the serpent representing the Eleusinian mysteries. According to John Granger, Harry's transformation into a true savior is the quest for the Philosopher's Stone, as hinted by the title of Book 1, the title of which was changed to Sorcerer's Stone for American audiences because of squeamishness of American Protestants over the alchemical reference and their misunderstanding as a diabolical occult symbol. Yeah, there are lots of Christian symbols that they have the diabolical built into them, because that is the fighting of evil, right? Finally, the piece de resistance in relation to all of these elements is Rowling's cryptic but tongue-in-cheek favorite Latin motto, which she applies to her Harry Potter books: Draco dormiens numquam titilandus. And that I put in my bio is my motto: never tickle a sleeping dragon. Consider that one of Harry Potter's chief nemesis is Draco Malfoy, which is literally dragon plus bad faith. A dragon with bad faith. And as compared to the character of Saint-Foy of the Rowling allegory in The Fairy Queen, meaning without faith. Without faith, without the other two Saracen brothers Rowling must fight, sans loy without law, and sans joy without joy, or a spiritual death. Rowling may well be trying to gently remind us that Harry Potter does indeed tickle a number of dragons, literally and metaphorically, in these books, and that while his status of chosen one would seem to leave him little choice, Potter could have simply chosen not to bother slaying dragons. This is what makes him special as a martyr figure, though, so his character inevitably and perhaps tragically is compelled to do so. Anyway, let me see. Am I missing a page here? Okay, well, I think that we're done here, but that was the main thing. That was one of the first things that I noticed when I was reading through the St. George book, concerned that Malfoy was a major figure there, and linked all of these together, and that's how I pieced all of this together. So if you're wondering how I did that paper, that's how I did it, and I think it was a great success at the time. Not one of my standing ovations. I've had two of them in my career, but it got a very good reception when I wrote that. Anyway, that's it for today on Harry Potter, and I will continue with my series next time, probably on the theme of the dark and the light in Sideways. And we will continue on with my reading series, my conference papers. I hope you enjoyed this. Follow along. Hit that like and subscribe. I know it's so whorish, but anyway. Thanks, and auf Wiedersehen, ciao.